Dr. Nick Ferryman, who will be saying some opening remarks, and the presentation named the world's most live-streamed genocide. All right, please give a loud round of applause for Dr. Nick Ferryman.
Test, test. Let me just correct one thing. I'm not a doctor. I'm assistant professor, but not a doctor. So anyway, good evening to you all, and welcome to our Nakba commemoration, which commemorates the 15th of May, the day after the 15th of May 1948, the day after the Israelis declared their own independence. Nakba is the Arabic for nightmare, and that's when the Palestinian nightmare began in earnest, and we are seeing the culmination of decades of oppression of the Palestinians on our screens daily over the last 18 months. So delighted to have you here, but it is a rather somber event, and at a somber moment in not just Palestinian history, I also think in human history. This is, I think, a juncture in world history, yeah, and we're seeing two sides opening up on this, a global south and the global north in many respects. PSC Thailand, Palestine Solidarity Campaign Thailand, first commemorated the Nakba in here in 2009. And we did so for 9 straight years, up until 2017. And Stuart Ward and Suna Larsson, 2 members of the Swedish embassy, were the driving forces behind us at that time. Yeah, another chair who's here this evening, Ian Hollingsworth, was a chair for several years, and he also ran the Nakba event here, including our last one here at the FCT back in 2017. He will be presenting something to us a little bit later. Let me also thank Karis. Karis, are you here? She's probably at the back somewhere. There she is. She's just handed over the reins of chair to Kun Adisara. Kun Adisara, would you like to raise your hand? Yeah. And Karis has been a driving force behind us for the last 2 years. I think without her doing her bit, we would have struggled even to be here today. So, Kun Karis, many thanks for your persistence over these last 2 or 3 years in particular. Yeah, warm round of applause there. Thank you, Karis. And I said all 4 of us have been responsible for putting on tonight's event. We've had a few ups and downs. We had put out invitations to all the members of the Hague Group who are supporting the South African charge of genocide at the ICJ against Israel. Unfortunately, we were not able to get any of them to come. Ajahn Adisara, I should mention, is from Chulalongkorn University. She is our networker-in-chief, and she has been responsible for recruiting 2 of our speakers this evening. Yeah, when we thought all was lost, and she's just taken over as chair. I'd like to thank the FCCT for being patient and allowing us to come yet again for our 10th time to present here, and we have extra facilities. We can now do Zoom. We couldn't do that in 2017. And we've also got some live streaming as well, which again you couldn't do in 2017. I'd like to thank our guests, speakers tonight. Kun Kanavi, who's here with us, will be up here on the stage later. And we've got Kun Kanavi Subsong is, as some of you may know, is an MP here in the Thai Parliament with the Fair Party. And we have 2 other guest speakers who are going to be online with us a bit later as well. Plus, I think we have someone from the BDS National Committee, whose name at the moment escapes me, but she will be on at the end of the evening giving us a report on boycott, disinvestment and sanctions. And let me also thank you, the audience, for being here with us tonight, taking time out of your busy schedules and social calendar to be with us. And the theme of the evening is this charge of genocide put forward by the South Africans at the ICJ against Israel. And I think that was back in 2024. So that is the theme of the evening. We may digress a little bit with our speakers on some of the issues, but that is the thrust of what we hope to do. I think that's all from me for now. So I hand back to you. I think I stay here.
All right.
Yeah.
Please don't go anywhere just yet. All right. All right. Nick. All right. He's going to be preparing the presentation called the World's Most Live-Streamed Genocide, and I think we all understand what that means, in the context of the genocide of the Palestinian people that is happening around that is happening right now. It is either on TikTok, it is either on live stream, it is always on social media. Everyone can see what is happening in Gaza right now. Everyone can see the carnage and the genocide that the Israeli forces are doing, towards civilians and a population that is mostly children as well. And right now, let me introduce. Yes, Assistant Professor Nicholas Ferryman again to kickstart this presentation and talk a little bit more about this live stream genocide. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kunyu. Yes, I've got a busy night tonight, and there's the beginning of my PowerPoint, and first thing I'd like to say is that the destruction of Gaza continues as we speak and dine, but the Israeli justification for this attack is based on a series of lies, complete and utter balderdash. And in my speech today, I've got two things I'd like to present. First of all, refute the key Israeli propaganda, and then talk about what I believe, and I'm going to give you the data to show it, is that we have a Palestinian Holocaust underway. How many people died on October the 7th? On the Israeli side, 1,139, and those are the ones I'm going to focus on for the next minute or so. Of those, 373 were Israeli soldiers. They were legitimate military targets. They were in the military compounds, just 500 meters behind the border fence from where they monitored and opened fire on Israelis, on Palestinians. And it doesn't matter whether they were armed or unarmed, asleep, on the loo. It doesn't matter. They were legitimate targets. So despite what the Israelis said, who claimed that they were murdered, they were killed in action. So unfortunately, there were 71 foreigners killed, including 41 Thai agricultural workers, which is, of course, deep regret to us here in Thailand. But I'm now going to focus on those 695 civilians, because the Israelis claims, one of their myths, that all of those 695 civilians were killed, executed, murdered at the hands of the Hamas militants. But there is some serious doubt about who was responsible for killing those 695. On the morning, just an hour or two after the Hamas raid over the border, a senior Israeli commander or commanders had issued the Hannibal Directive. For those who don't know, the Hannibal Directive allows Israeli soldiers to open fire and kill other Israelis, Israeli military personnel, if they think those soldiers are going to be captured and taken hostage. So that's one thing we know. We know that Apache helicopters were firing Hellfire missiles, and they were firing Hellfire missiles at vehicles fleeing from the Novara Music Festival back towards Gaza, with Hamas militants on board and many Israeli civilians taken as hostage. How many were killed? Well, this is a photograph from the scrap heap of those vehicles. This is from Electronic Intifada. So you can see there are scores of vehicles there. So I think some 250 Israeli hostages made it alive back to Gaza. How many were killed by the Apache helicopter Hellfire missiles is very difficult to assess, but you can see from those wrecks there, it was probably quite considerable. Not only Hellfire missiles fired from helicopters, we had tank shells fired from, I think they were main battle tanks, the Mashava main battle tanks, from probably ranges of 100 to 300 meters, direct into the homes of Israelis on their kibbutzim. And there was one witness, her name, I've forgotten her first name, Poirot, who tells the story live on Israeli radio a couple of days after the event, claiming that in the room of about 15 to 18 people there, 8 or 10 of them Hamas militants, the other 6 or 7 Israelis were killed, apart from her and the Hamas fighter. So that's just one tank shell fired into one room. How many other rooms did that happen as well? So another myth. You had the myth of the Hamas militants decapitating 40 babies in the Kafar as kibbutz. Well, that was refuted within about 4 or 5 days. And it was also reported not long after in those international newspapers as well. But what we mustn't forget, these myths were used by the West and Israel to justify the attacks that are committed after the 7th of October. Another one, that there was mass systematic rape of Israeli women by Hamas militants. Yet again, another myth. What's the evidence? Well, these 3 American newspapers report, as did many others, much later, that this was not so. The question is, where are the autopsy reports on the bodies to show rape? Where are the forensic tests to show semen in the vagina? Where are the eyewitnesses coming forward to say that they were victims of this or witnessed it? There are none. There is no answers to any of those 3 major questions about that. So again, this is another major myth. All 3 of those myths combined together, still being talked about today by certain Western leaders, and certainly Biden and Schumer and others a year after were still saying the atrocities on that day by Hamas justified what happened next. No justification. There's no evidence, or minimal. So, how many Gazans have been killed? You looked at the Israelis, how many Gazans? Well, this is from the Lancet newspaper, and one of the UK's top medical journals. It's over 200 years old, so highly reputable. They report, you got the source underneath, they report that over 60,000 Palestinians had been killed by traumatic injury. That means by weapon systems, bombs, rifle fire, and that the Palestinian Ministry of Health were underreporting the fatalities. So that's 64,000 after 9 months. And they report that after a year, it's likely to be in excess of 70,000 deaths from traumatic injury. Now, what about those under the rubble? There are large numbers of people under the rubble. Well, the Lancet report does not include those deaths in those statistics you have just seen. How many were under the rubble? Another Lancet report says that it's probably in excess of 10,000, and that was in February 2024, when only 35% of the buildings have been destroyed. We now know it's 90 to 95% of the buildings being destroyed. So you can probably multiply that factor by about 10,000 by a factor of 3. So 30,000 plus dead bodies under the rubble that are not being included in the fatalities that the Gazans have experienced. One thing we ought to know is that generally in humanitarian crises, the organizations multiply by a factor of 3 to 15 times those who died as a consequence of traumatic injury for those who died from disease and malnutrition caused by the fighting, 3 to 15 times. So let's have a look at the figures on here. So we have, this is the Palestinian Ministry of Health that I've extrapolated for an extra 3 months from their 37,000, 2% of the population. Oh, sorry. And the 70,000 is from that first Lancet report I was talking about, extrapolated up to 12 months as well. 3% of the total population have been killed. I've estimated the population at 2.3 million. 4.3% if we go for the Lancet report of 100,000. The biggest one here is if you multiply that 100,000 by 3 to get those who've died from malnutrition and disease, we're looking at 300,000. How does that compare to World War II and the Jewish Holocaust? Thirteen 13% for Palestine after 1 year, and the Jewish Holocaust was 10% a year of the total population of Jews in Europe of 10 million. So that's 10% a year here. We're on 13%, and the disaster from the lack of food coming in, the total destruction of their infrastructure, suggests that this figure is going to continue to climb even after the conflict stops. So as I said, to sum up, no justification for the attack as regards those 3 myths that I mentioned, and look at the horrific fatalities that we've got. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Now we can continue to Kun Ian, right? Kun Ian, Mr. Ian Hollingworth. So now I would like you to again help with this next section. So please help us discuss on the genocide since October 7th and contextualize this ongoing Nakba. So again, please, a big round of applause for Mr. Ian Hollingworth.
Okay. Thank you. If you've looked at the leaflet distributed earlier on your seats, you will have read about Hind Rajab, the little girl left alone in a car full of her murdered family as she desperately tried to call for help on her mobile before being killed herself by Israeli forces. And if you followed the link in the FCCT bulletin or the website to the Hind Rajab Foundation, named in her memory, you will have read about its legal pursuit via the International Criminal Court, the ICC, of Israeli war criminals in whatever country they felt entitled to visit, including Thailand. So here then briefly is an example of an IOF soldier who came to Thailand and was pursued by the Foundation. PSC Thailand works closely with the Foundation in maintaining pressure on the Thai government to do the right thing. And we are delighted to welcome the chair of the Foundation as one of our speakers tonight. Here's the soldier I'm talking about, Lido Kandalka. Now, he was shown in a video detonating explosives that destroy a civilian home in Gaza and celebrating afterwards, boasting about the destruction. In addition to filing the ICC complaint, the Hind Rajab Foundation notified Thai authorities, including the police, the Ministry of Justice, and the Thai Embassy in The Hague. Now, this is Professor Joel Elitzer. Professor Elitzer is a former chair of the Council of Psychologists and emeritus professor at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He published a series of interviews with IOF soldiers in Haaretz, an Israeli newspaper. And here is what one of them said. A new commander came to us. We went out with him on the first patrol at 6 in the morning. He stops. There's not a soul in the streets, just a little 4-year-old boy playing in the sand in his yard. The commander suddenly starts running, grabs the boy and breaks his arm at the elbow, and his leg, here. She stepped on his stomach 3 times and left. We all stood there with our mouths open, looking at him in shock. I asked the commander, "What's your story?" He told me, "These kids need to be killed from the day they are born. When a commander does it, that is legitimate." Now, here we have some more testimony, this time from Dr. Mark Perlmutter, a Jewish orthopedic surgeon who has worked in conflict zones around the world for decades. Bombing during prayers. He says, the bombing was concentrated at the time of evening prayers. It happened all day long, but it was distinctly, purposefully concentrated when the Muslims were gathered together in tight units, shoulder to shoulder, knee to knee, praying to God while they were being bombed.
Of the International College of Surgeons volunteered in Gaza.
So, of all the disaster zones you've seen, how does Gaza compare?
All of the disasters I've seen combined, 40 mission trips, 30 years, ground zero, earthquakes, all of that combined doesn't equal the level of carnage that I saw against civilians in just my first week in Gaza.
And when you say civilians, is it mostly children?
Almost exclusively children. I've never seen that before. Never seen that. I've seen more incinerated children than I've ever seen in my entire life combined. I've seen more shredded children in just the first week.
Shredded?
Shredded.
What do you mean?
Missing body parts, being crushed by buildings, the greatest majority, or bomb explosions, the next greatest majority. We've taken shrapnel as big as my thumb out of 8-year-olds, and then there's sniper bullets. I have children that were shot twice.
Wait, you're saying that children in Gaza are being shot by sniper?
And again,
one father whose photograph I look at every night explained to me how his kid was ripped out of his hand. And he went looking for him on the ground and couldn't find him. 10 meters away, he found his kid and looked at him while he got shot the second time. But his father thought that was the first time. When he came to us, he had no organs when I rolled him over. He had no organs. The classic high-velocity bullet wound is a small entrance hole the size of the bullet, and the exit wound is capacious. An American football was the size of the hole in the kid's back. Everything between his shoulder blades and every organ in his chest was missing, including his spine. When I rolled him over, my hand fell into his chest, feeling his rib cage. And then when I rolled him back, the dressing fell off his head, and I saw his brains coming out of the other side. This kid was 6 years old.
6 years old. Now there's X-ray evidence of children being shot in the head. These photographs of X-rays were provided by Dr. Mimi Sayed, who worked in Khan Yunis from August 8th to September 5th. She said, "I had multiple pediatric patients, mostly under the age of 12, who were shot in the head or the left side of the chest. Usually, these were single shots. The patients came in either dead or critical and died shortly after arriving." So, finally, I have no words to describe the sickening sensation I feel.
Right. Thank you again to Mr. Ian Hollingworth, member of the PSC Thailand. So, all right. I think we're all still a bit shocked after those footages, but it is exactly what is happening right now in Gaza. So right now, on to our next session. I would like to again invite Assistant Professor Nicholas to read the messages from the ambassadors of South Africa and Ireland. Right.
Thank you, New, for that. Unfortunately, the South African ambassador can't be with us. He had to withdraw at the last minute after his foreign ministry requested he do so. That was last Wednesday on the grounds of The case being sub judice, so there was concerns that anything you might say might compromise the case that is before the ICJ at the moment. But to quote the ambassador, His Excellency, Mr. Dake from Africa, wishes to confirm that the position of the South African government with regards to the Palestinian struggle and the genocide case against Israel has not changed at all. Unquote. From the Irish Embassy, I was in email contact with the Irish Ambassador, His Excellency Pat Bourne, who can't be with us because he's out of the country at the moment, but he reiterated that the Irish position on Palestine hasn't changed. Ireland has campaigned tirelessly for a two-state solution and rejects, for example, the Israeli labeling of Palestinian efforts to achieve statehood through the UN as diplomatic terrorism. I think many of us here are aware of how the Irish people think about what's going on in Palestine, and so I know we have the support of the Irish as well here today, or tonight as well. From Suna Larson, who was a co-founder and our treasurer for 10 years, who's now living in Isan, he says, quote, "When I co-founded PSC Thailand some 17 years ago, I wanted to be part of a movement which would help end the Palestinian nightmare. Never did I imagine that I would see what I have done on our screens today. The scale of the inhumanity we witness is reminiscent of earlier times. Never has it been more important to show solidarity with the Palestinians. Please keep up the good work." Unquote. And I'm going to read an abridged version of a statement from Stuart Ward, an abridged version of his original, with his permission. And Stuart Ward was the co-founder, former chairperson and advisor of PSC Thailand for many years. Quote, "First, may I say how proud I am of all of you at Palestinian Solidarity Campaign Thailand for the fantastic work you are doing for the Palestinians. Those of us who attended the inaugural meeting on the 10th of December 2007 did not dare to hope for the kind of stewardship and development of PSC Thailand that you have succeeded in achieving. Thank you. It is indeed dark times for the Palestinians. Many in the West believe the Israel-Palestine conflict started on the 7th of October 2023. But the root cause of the genocide goes back to the iniquitous UK imperialistic project embedded in the Balfour Declaration of 1917. Ever since Hamas won the 2006 Palestinian legislative elections by a landslide, Israel has bombed, pulverized, and starved the people of Gaza in an attempt to forcibly expel them from their ancestral lands. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, after his visit to the occupied territories, commented that apartheid in South Africa was a Sunday picnic compared to the apartheid in Palestine. The international community seems at best indifferent and at worst complicit in Israel's use of torture, incarceration, home demolitions, and now genocide. Unfortunately, seeking justice through the international courts will deliver a verdict too late to stop the mass slaughter of innocents. For any decent, compassionate human being, believing in equality and justice for all is the only future for humanity. Unquote. Okay, those are our statements. I would now like to move to the next part of the evening, which is my interview now with the director of the Asian Middle East Center, that is Dr. Muslim Imran. Dr. Imran, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Good evening to you all.
Good evening to you, Dr. Imran. Thank you for taking the time to come and be with us here this evening. You are the director, I believe, of the Asian Middle East Center, AMEC, for Research and Dialogue, based in Malaysia. Is that correct?
Yeah, true.
Thank you. And you campaign ceaselessly for an end to the Palestinian Nakba. Dr. Imran, would you like to open the discussion with a few words of your own this evening?
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Nick, and everyone in the venue and everyone watching. I'm very honored to speak to you, and I would like to apologize not being able to join you in person, but I am a big fan of Thailand and the great people of Thailand who are very welcoming and hospitable. And I'm very pleased that today they are organizing this forum on the ongoing situation in Gaza and in Palestine. I will very briefly point out to a very important fact, the root cause of our problem, which is the emergence of Zionism. Now, looking back at the history of Palestine, one would realize that this land has seen many phases of human civilization. It's a beacon of civilization where many religions have coexisted for centuries. And we are proud in Palestine that the first or one of the earliest human settlements emerged in Palestine, in Jericho, some 10,000 years ago, when mankind was transforming its lifestyle into an agricultural, settler style. Many civilizations emerged ever since, including the most ancient of them, the Canaanite civilization. The people of this region, Palestine, Lebanon, and the surrounding, were very proud for their contributions in human history. The Phoenicians, for instance, contributed the alphabets, and the people of the region continued to trade, explore, interact with the rest of the world. So for centuries, this place was a melting pot for civilizations, cultures, people of different religious and cultural backgrounds. Of course, this was interrupted a few times in history. One of the most painful and bitter experiences, which we should relate to, is that of the Crusades, when European Crusades forces invaded the region and destroyed the fabric and caused a lot of mess. But the people of the region managed to restore peace and religious coexistence again for many centuries to come. Eventually, this all ended in the early 20th century, when the Zionist movement emerged in Europe, and the imperialist colonial powers of the time decided to cooperate with this extra or ultra-nationalist movement to create a homeland for the Jewish people in somebody else's land, in Palestine. The British Empire, most particularly, invaded Palestine in 1917 and brutally crushed the resistance in Palestine, and eventually issued the Balfour Declaration, promising a land they don't own to a people who did not practically belong to that land. The Palestinians for centuries have been very hospitable and welcoming to anyone, be it a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jewish person. But what happened in the early 20th century was a new phase of colonialism, where European colonial powers decided that the land of Palestine should not have its own right of self-determination. The Palestinian people were not worthy of ruling themselves or establishing an independent state, just like all their neighboring countries in Egypt, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and elsewhere. And somebody else should take over Palestine. And this was the Zionist movement. And the Zionist movement orchestrated one of the most brutal takeovers in modern history, when in 1947, 1948, they committed a terrible genocide, an act of ethnic cleansing, and many war crimes that resulted in the creation of the State of Israel. Today, we commemorate the establishment of Israel on the skulls, skeletons, and blood of thousands and thousands of Palestinians. But the Zionist movement, which established Israel, was not satisfied with that. They could have tried to live in peace with their neighboring countries, but instead, the very nature of Zionism inspired them to attack their neighbors frequently. In 1956, they attacked Egypt. 1967, they attacked Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and of course, they occupied the West Bank and Gaza. In 1978, they attacked Lebanon. 1982, they occupied Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. In the following years, they crushed the bones of the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza in the first Intifada. In 2008, they attacked Gaza again. 2014, another attack on Gaza. And the brutality of this regime continues. In 2023, all the way until today, this settler colonial regime, this apartheid regime decided to engage in an active genocide. So far, tens of thousands of Palestinians have been massacred, and the genocide continues. And interestingly or sadly, almost the entire world recognizes that a genocide is taking place in Gaza, but Israel still has a free hand to continue to commit genocide, and many people are still dealing with Israel, supplying what Israel needs to continue its genocide, and the world is still unable to stop this genocide. So today, I'll be very glad to discuss some of the aspects of the great developments that are taking place in the international arena, including the ICJ, ICC cases, as well as the ongoing civil society action that is growing the momentum of the international solidarity with Palestine like never before. A lot has been happening in the last 1.5 years. It feels as if modern history has been condensed into a very, very intense time. And for the Palestinians, every day that passes means more bloodshed, more loss of life. But we also realize that with great pain comes great gain. We will eventually see the freedom of Palestine and our right of self-determination realized very soon. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Dr. Imran. Thank you. Before I go any further, can I just check, is there a microphone available for the audience to ask questions shortly? Could we check that there is a microphone available? Good. Dr. Imran, yes, one little point I'd like to make there in what you said. I do recognize my own country's involvement, the United Kingdom. The Zionist state of Israel would never have occurred without our assistance, greatly assisted as it was. But we won't go into the history of that right now. What I would like to do is to ask you, why is it, Dr. Imran, that Malaysia is a member of the Hague Group, yeah, which is a group that supports the South African charge of genocide at the ICJ. Why has Malaysia joined? Why has the Hague Group come into existence? Wasn't the case strong enough on its own merits to pass through the court?
Well, of course, South Africa was doing a good job charging Israel at the ICJ, but the Hague Group is a collective, action that empowers South Africa further and draws more global attention to this case. Either one of the Hague countries could have been the one that took up the case early on, but many of them, probably due to logistical reasons or any other reasons, did not initiate the action. South Africa did. And these countries came in to support. Some of them were very early in expressing their solidarity with South Africa. Malaysia actually was one of the very early countries to speak up in support of the South African
Which country
case.
was that? Sorry?
Malaysia. Malaysia was one of the earliest countries to
yeah.
speak in favor of the South African effort. And I personally have had meetings with people in the foreign ministry in Malaysia where they expressed their interest to come in to help in the ongoing case and other cases. And we have to realize that Israel is probably the first country in history that is facing or was facing 4 different charges at the ICJ at the same time, in the same year. And this tells you the...
So let me just confirm that. So Israel is the first country, to be charged with genocide at the ICJ. Is that correct?
Israel is one of the countries that is being charged for genocide, but at the same time, Nicaragua, for instance, is charging Germany of being complicit in genocide. The United Nations General Assembly, at the request of Palestine, has also called for an advisory opinion about Israel's war crimes in the West Bank and Gaza. And this was going on throughout the past year, 2024, and the ICJ ruled that Israel has no right of self-defense, and its occupation of the West Bank and Gaza is illegal and unlawful. There is another ongoing advisory opinion case initiated by Norway about Israel's practices against the United Nations Works and Relief Agency, UNRWA. So Israel is facing a lot of charges, and this tells you how criminal the regime is. But at the same time, when
sorry, let me interrupt you there. You
facing
mentioned Norway there. Am I correct? Yes.
Norway, yeah.
Norway. Yes. You and I were talking the other day on
Norway on Israel's practices against the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA.
Yeah, you and I were talking the other day on an email how the Norwegian trade union movement has just issued a complete boycott and disinvestment and sanctions on Israel, which covers political, financial, cultural and sporting events. And they've gone as far as to say if there hasn't been any improvement in Gaza by September, they're going to lead a worldwide campaign of boycott, disinvestment and sanctions. So they're not waiting for their government, and I think that's a clear sign for many of us how we believe that it's civil society organizations like yours and Norway's and here and elsewhere who are going to have to take action on this and take the initiative to bring about an end to this and hold Israel fully account. What I'd like to ask you as well is what pushback have you had, has Malaysia had from particularly, we're looking at the West, has the West tried to intimidate Malaysia into backing down on this?
Most definitely, Nick. The South Africans, let's start with South Africa, are being intimidated by the United States. This is a well-known fact. The South African ambassador has just returned home a few weeks ago. There are some US proxies from the Middle East that are pressuring South Africa, threatening to end their investments in the country, in order for the South Africans to pull out of the ICJ case. So this happened to South Africa, and it is also happening to any country that supported South Africa.
Sorry, let me interrupt. Do you have any companies you can name who have threatened to pull their investment?
I would rather make it vague, but anybody who's following the developments in the Middle East knows very well about the complicity of certain regimes in war crimes and wars, not only in Palestine, but also across the region, in Yemen, Libya, and elsewhere. Some of these regimes are pressuring South Africa to, for instance, pull out of the ICJ case, to sever its ties with the Palestinian resistance and other actions. But in the case of Malaysia, many Western diplomats applied pressure on the Malaysian authorities. At one occasion, the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim raised this point publicly and said that the Malaysian government received several diplomatic notes from the United States for Malaysia's outspoken stand and for its support for the ICJ case. And a few conversations with Malaysian officials will tell you that this pressure is not only being applied by the United States. Unfortunately, other Western governments are also applying such pressure on the Malaysian government. And I suppose if they have the audacity to speak to one of the rising powers in Asia, like Malaysia, this way, they definitely are applying more pressure on smaller countries with probably more economic challenges amongst the Hague Group. So yes, a lot of Western pressure is being applied on these countries, and this tells you a lot about the hypocrisy and the double standards practiced by some of the Western powers that realize that what Israel is doing is a genocide and is wrong, but cannot just stop being Israel's friends.
Thank you for that. Can I ask the audience now, open up for questions from the audience for Dr. Muslim Imran? And while we wait there, Dr. Imran, just point out that President Trump has said that the issue of arrest warrants by the ICC, rather than the ICJ, where the charge of genocide is against the state, here we have arrest warrants issued by the ICC for the arrest of Netanyahu and Gallant, so 2 international courts. And Trump has come out and said it's a threat to US national security, these arrest warrants, and he has specifically targeted Karim Khan, a UK lawyer, who is the ICC's chief prosecutor for punishment. So we can see there is international pressure at the ICC and ICJ and individuals as well as nation states. Do we have anyone who wishes to ask a question? Yeah, on the microphone, please. Be willing to hear.
Dr. Imran, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Imtiaz Muqbil. I'm a journalist. Can you explain the attitude of the Arab governments, Egypt, Jordan, and the other countries? It looks, without their support, nothing could actually happen. But they don't not only seem to be supporting it in a way indirectly, but as from Trump's recent visit, they're actually buying more American equipment and aiding and abetting it both financially as well. And in addition to, of course, Egypt shutting down, not allowing any of the trucks going through. So there are many of us who, of course, who support the Palestinian cause, but it looks as if the Arabs are stabbing their own brothers in the back. If that is the case, how do you expect anybody to make any progress?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. It's a tough question, actually. Let me start by saying this: if you see someone being stabbed by their brother, would you, a stranger, say this is none of my business? Let this victim be stabbed? Of course not. So if the Palestinians are being stabbed by some of their brothers from the region, it definitely does not mean that the rest of the world should sit by idly and let this happen. Now, Israel has committed crimes not only against the Palestinians, and I'm not talking about history now, I'm talking about the current times. Israel has committed war crimes against the Palestinians, Lebanese, Syrians, and of course Yemenis and Iranians, and this is well documented, and in some places like Gaza it still continues, and in Syria and Lebanon it happens frequently. So the Palestinians are resisting this. The attitude of the different Arab countries varies. Not all Arab countries have the same attitude towards what's happening in Gaza. In public, everybody is condemning what Israel is doing. We have to acknowledge that. Not a single Arab country can, stand on the side of the Israelis publicly, because this means instability. This means, problems at home. The Arab public, the people in most OIC member states and across Asia and Africa are very sympathetic with the Palestinian struggle, very sympathetic with the resistance in Palestine, and are very anti-colonial. So you cannot see an Arab president or king coming publicly to support Israel against the Palestinians. But action speaks louder than words. The closed door, meetings that some of the Arab regimes have with the US in particular, and with Israeli representatives, tell you that some of them are not really on the side of the Palestinians, and I'm talking about regimes. Some of the Arab regimes have openly told Israel to continue its job in Gaza, finish them off. They're, of course, talking about the Palestinian resistance, but eventually finishing off the Palestinian resistance means a total destruction in Gaza and the loss of thousands and thousands of Palestinian lives. However, this is not the attitude of the majority of the Arab states. I would say the majority of the Arab states, the majority of the OIC member states are just toothless and unable to stop the genocide. Many countries feel the pressure of the economic and diplomatic Western pressure at home. Let's remember that many of the countries of the region have gone through a period of instability for the last 15 years, after the Arab Spring and especially after the Iraq War in 2003, the region has been facing a lot of economic, political, socio-economic, socio-political security problems. And in many cases, this was not resolved. We're talking about countries that are fighting civil war, like Sudan and Libya, Yemen, and other countries. So many of these regimes are actually unable to do anything about the situation in Gaza. And this makes the responsibility of other countries greater. When countries that are next to Palestine are unable to make a change, this makes the responsibility of other countries greater. If some of the countries in the region are backward economically or are facing internal security instability and chaos, or are under huge diplomatic pressure from the West, the rest of the world should not wait until these countries stand up to Western pressure. Other countries should come in and help, and this makes the responsibility of European countries, the responsibility of Latin American countries, Asian and African countries greater.
Thank you.
The situation in the Middle East, the situation in the Arab world is not good.
Yes,
it's not perfect. It's disappointing, but we should not stop until this genocide ends. We shouldn't wait for the neighbors to come and solve the problem. If they are unable to solve it, somebody else has to step in.
Thank you. I just point out that General Wesley Clark back in 2005 said that there were 7 states that needed to fall, and Dr. Imran then mentioned several of them. He mentioned Syria. Lebanon has also came under attack in 2006 from the IDF. Egypt had its Arab Spring, so the whole of that area has been destabilized, and we know who does the destabilization. So I think it's very difficult for those states to stand up and have an independent voice on these issues, because they're going to get really hurt by the US and its allies in support of Israel. Is there another question from anyone, please, there? I'll just ask Dr. Iran another question. This relates to China. China's come out, and please, and feel free to ask questions here. China's come out very strongly, Dr. Imran, in recent weeks, calling for an end to the genocide and even for a 2-state solution. Now, you did your PhD in strategic and international studies. Do you think China's support for Palestine is a game changer? Is it threatening this Western hegemony on the Palestinian issue? Does it have sufficient leverage at the ICJ to make sure the case is heard and gets passed?
Of course, China's involvement carries huge weight. China is a heavyweight. It's a rising superpower, and by many measures, China is either a counterweight to the United States or even surpassing the United States on different fronts. So China's commitment towards an end of the ongoing genocide in Gaza and an end of the Israeli occupation and establishment of the Palestinian state will definitely make a difference. It's just that China's involvement in the Middle East is still limited for many strategic calculations and reasons. China, in principle, stands by the Palestinian rights. There are strong historical ties. Both nations have been fighting colonial intervention. The Chinese have supported the Palestinian revolution in the 1960s and 70s. China continues to call for an end of occupation and establishment of a Palestinian state. So, in principle, China is on Palestine's side. But when it comes to geopolitical calculations, how involved is China in the situation in Palestine? This is still an open question. I would say that China's confidence is growing, and over the last 2 or 3 years, its officials have become more outspoken, criticizing Israel's policies, and they extended a hand to the Palestinian factions for the first time in contemporary history. Palestinian resistance groups as well as other Palestinian factions convened in Beijing to discuss national unity amongst the Palestinians.
When was that? When did the Palestinian groups meet in Beijing? When was that?
This took place in June 2024.
Wow.
Last year, June 2024.
So they've hosted Palestinian militia groups and political groups?
Across the spectrum, Hamas, Fatah, and many other Palestinian factions convened in Beijing and a declaration in the presence of the foreign minister of China was read out. So China is coming into the Palestinian issue in, I would say, slow but steady progress. It's a very good news for the Palestinians. China has a lot of leverage and can make a difference. But this brings me to an important point, which I should have made clear earlier. The Palestinians do not expect to be free only through the United Nations and international institutions. That's very important. It's like that. If you want to build a house in Bangkok, if you get a permit from the municipal council, if you go get a paper from the authorities allowing you to build a house, your house is not up yet. In order to erect this house, you need to go and buy cement, rocks, bring some labor, and do many other things. So the international, institutions, the United Nations, the ICJ, the ICC, the multilateral framework within which the world is operating, is not going to give us a free Palestine. That is necessary, of course. We need many other things to be, brought into account and consideration. That's why the Palestinians are doing their own nation building, state building. They are, building all sorts of institutions: academic, economic, civil society, cultural, social, and so on. And that's why they are engaged in active, non-violent resistance through the BDS and many other measures. And that's why they are also engaged in an active... Sorry.
Yeah, let me stop you there, because we now have another questioner. So Ian, please, would like to ask.
This is on, yes. I don't really want to say this. My heart tells me not to, but my head says it must. And the lesson is follow the money. And I'm referring here to an article in the Middle East Eye, which is entitled How China is Quietly Aiding Israel's Settlement Enterprise. Away from Beijing's lofty rhetoric about defending Palestinians, Chinese firms are helping to sustain illegal settlements. Now, I haven't read that article. I'm just referring you to it if you wish to follow it up. All I'm saying is these are very complicated issues, and I'm not detracting for a minute from China's positive role in all of this.
So Ian, what was your question? It's just a statement there, is it?
My question is, will you allow that statement?
Okay, thank you for your point. We are all, grown up. I understand that life is not black and white. Egypt, which is closing down the borders, making access to Gaza very difficult, is the same country and the same government that is refusing to allow depopulation of Gaza and transfer of the Palestinians from Gaza to Sinai. I see China's role in perspective, in larger perspective. China, in general, in principle, is pro-Palestine, is supporting the struggle for a free Palestine, but it's also doing business with Israel. It is still, not in full force and full support of the Palestinian resistance, and so on. And this applies to many other governments and countries, actually. Thailand, the very Thailand that you all are, speaking from, which I love and respect, is sympathetic with Palestine. I see that in the civil society action. I see that even in conversations with some Thai officials that I had previously. But at the same time, it allows hundreds of thousands of Israeli tourists who most probably are active military personnel in the Israeli military that is committing a genocide in Gaza. It allows them to come for holiday in Thailand. There is an ongoing trade. There are a lot of trade and labor treaties between Israel and Thailand. So the picture is not rosy, but I'm talking about the overall picture, the big picture. The big picture is that Thailand is pro-Palestine. But there are, of course, certain limitations. What we are doing as an international solidarity movement, what we are doing as a civil society group lobbying for Palestine, is that we are telling governments, please reduce your engagement with Israel and expand your support for the Palestinians. So we are all lobbying for less Israel, more Palestine in a way or another.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Muslim Imran. We've got to wrap up there. We've come to the end of our time there. Before I do, I'd just like to thank you for highlighting a couple of issues for us, and one of them is pointing out the efforts, the impact that China is beginning to have on the world scene with regards to Palestine, and the efforts that the Palestinians themselves are making with the help of others to fully engage the wider world, if not the West, at many different levels as part of their preparation for eventual statehood. Dr. Imran, thank you again for coming, and we wish you well with your civil society organization, and you can continue to build on the dialogue that you're having here in the region with other organizations and states. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Nick, and thank you everyone in this program. I really appreciate the efforts that you are doing. I'm very grateful for the Thai and other international activists that are working on this front. Your efforts make a difference. In some countries like Malaysia or South Africa, there is a lot of civil society activism for Palestine. In Thailand, I see more. The country is becoming more visible on the international solidarity map. I really hope that this effort will continue, and eventually we will all be able to visit a free Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Muslim Imran. And thank you to Assistant Professor Nicholas Fairman again as well. If we are, I would like to plug a little promotion for a little event on the 17th as well. There is going to be a protest in Bangkok near Patumwan intersection regarding Palestine and the ongoing Nakba. And okay, now let's move on to the next panel. This panel is named Accountability and Israeli War Criminals in Thailand. So I'm gonna have to ask you to help moderate this one again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kun Kanavi, would you like to come to the stage, please? And let me just check, am I talking to Abu Jaja of the Hind Rajab Foundation? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello, this is Diab Abu Jaja, yes.
Good to have you with us, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If I may start, I'd like to ask you, Abu Jaja, to make a few opening remarks, if you would please, about yourself, your organization, and anything else you would like to inform us about.
Yes, thank you very much. So dear friends, thanks for inviting the Hind Rajab Foundation to be part of your esteemed gathering today in the commemoration of Al-Nakba, Palestine. To introduce our organization, which I chair, it is very important to understand that we are part of a large solidarity movement, which includes your organization, but also across the planet, many very important initiatives. So we have, launched the Hind Rajab Foundation, as the name suggests, in commemoration of Hind Rajab, who's a Palestinian child martyr. It is the girl who was killed, the 5-year-old who was killed in the car with her family members when her car was taken fire by an Israeli tank. And then Hind survived the initial barrage and called the help services, the Palestinian Red Crescent, asking for help. And I believe many of you have heard that conversation because it was broadcasted live across the planet. And everybody was aware that Hind was stuck in that car among the dead bodies of her family members. Everybody heard Hind pleading for her life, asking the Red Crescent people to send an ambulance, and also telling the dispatcher that the tank was visible to her and that she's very afraid. Eventually what happened is that despite an ambulance was sent, in coordination with the Israeli army, the ambulance was also attacked, bombarded by Israeli tank, and the 2 medics who were on the ambulance were also killed. And Hind was killed as well. You could hear the bullets on the live call, with the recorded live call with the Palestinian Red Crescent dispatcher. You can hear the live bullets that ended her life. So we called our foundation the Hind Rajab Foundation because we felt that this crime symbolizes this genocide. It symbolizes genocide in many layers and many aspects, in the sense that it shows the level of impunity with which Israel is operating in Gaza. Because even, after 6 hours of world awareness of the situation of Hind, after coordinating with the COGAT, the Israeli authority that is leading the coordination efforts in Gaza, the civilian coordination efforts, in order to allow an ambulance, still Israel killed the child and the ambulance workers, and kind of get away with it, in the sense that they said, okay, it wasn't us, which is what the Israelis always have used as a strategy when something like that happens. We all think on the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh, the Palestinian journalist who was killed by Israel, and then Israel initially said, oh, it's the Palestinian militants who shot her. Then after a while, they said, oh, it's a stray bullet, we don't know where it came from, and then eventually they admitted that it was them who shot her. So in the case of Hind, it was a similar thing. So this is very symbolic, because this genocide, one of the features of this genocide is the disproportionate number of children who are killed in it. But also, I think Hind symbolizes the innocence. So our organization, holds that name dearly, and our goal, our mission, is to end this impunity and to establish some form of accountability for the Israeli perpetrators. So what we do is basically we build an understanding of these war crimes, we document the war crimes, and also we identify the perpetrators. And when these perpetrators travel abroad, we file legal cases against them and across the planet. We have done that in many countries, including Thailand, and we are relentless in this, and we'll continue to do it, because this is a task, that will take a generation before it is, let's say, completed. So this is our contribution. This is what we try to do as an organization.
Thank you. So you aim to end impunity for these war criminals and hold them to account. You mentioned Thailand there. Could you briefly describe what happened in those cases?
Yes. As you know, Thailand is a very popular touristic destination for many Israeli individuals. Mostly young people, and mostly, young people in Israel, most of them are active or reserve soldiers. I think it's one of the most militarized countries in the world. And at this particular period, most of these young Israelis who traveled to Thailand are actively serving, or were just actively serving in Gaza, taking part of the war crimes that are committed there. And either they just ended their service, or they are on some kind of a pause before regaining their battalion and taking part again in the military efforts there. So we are monitoring, the movement of many of these soldiers through their own social media posts, and we have filed the case in Thailand, one case, and what happened is that the suspect left the country in a hurry, aided by the Israeli government, clearly fearing some kind of legal action in Thailand. So we did not file many cases in Thailand. We could file much more than that, because we are confronted, we do, of course, an analysis of the legal system. And Thailand is not a very reactive legal system when it comes to crimes committed abroad. Thailand does not recognize that it has universal jurisdiction over war crimes. It's not a signatory of the Rome Statute. So the legal scene, and the legal text, the legal code in Thailand is quite complicated for us as an organization. However, this is not a unique situation. There are other countries in the world where that legal situation is not very conducive for our activities. And what can compensate that, what can create some kind of extra leverage to activate whatever possibilities there are in the law, is solidarity movements. Is movements like yourselves, activities like this one, the lobbying with friendly politicians who can bring also the voice for justice into the political scene. So I think there is a big role to play for Canadian, for Thai civil society in order to complement, because our efforts are strictly legal. What we do, we just file cases, we mobilize lawyers, and we press charges in name of victims in Gaza. So this is what we do. We cannot, and we do not have the ambition to do more than that. So we need, I think, organizations that are in the grassroots, that are present in these countries. And we are having this kind of response in many countries. In Brazil, for example, one of these cases led to a probe order from a judge forcing an interrogation with an Israeli soldier. In Cyprus, in order to escape arrest, one Israeli soldier was smuggled. And when I'm saying smuggled, I'm not exaggerating. It was basically smuggled out of the country, meaning taking him out of the country, not through the airport, not through regular, channels. So it is very possible to do something. However, the solidarity aspect is a crucial one. And I think this is something that I'm very happy to have this opportunity to bring this to your attention and to talk about it with you.
Thank you. Abu Jaja, you mentioned that Thailand doesn't have a conducive legal structure to arrest war criminals who come here. If I may, I'll introduce Kun Kanavi, who is an MP here in Parliament for the Fair Party and has had a long background in humanitarian affairs. Has been with the UN, has been with many other organizations with these sorts of issues. Could you give us a sense of, is Abu Jaja right in this assessment that Thailand's not really a great arena for arresting war criminals because the legal structure and culture isn't there?
Colleagues and friends. So first and foremost, I have to admit that, after I listened to all the presentation, I'm supposed to be down there. I should not be here as speaker. I know that I have limited knowledge about Palestine, the situation in Gaza. However, I'm just only the plain politician who become one of the members of the parliament who've been pushing on the humanitarian and human rights situation in Thailand. And I heard about the situation about China, involvement of China about Palestine, about Gaza, about Israel, and also the situation that Thailand doesn't have like kind of conducive condition in terms of respecting the international law, because now we have not yet ratified the for sure Rome Statute, as well as other the universal jurisdiction. Thailand has not yet recognized universal jurisdiction. So it's been our norms, but for me, I look at the lack of the following up on the current situation in 21st century in the world. So Thailand has any foreign policy in dealing with the current situation in the world. We're just following up, we're taking stance. So I'm not talking because I'm opposition. I'm talking as a person who just following up on the situation of humanitarian, as well as a politician who just looking at our country that we can be better. We can improve our country in terms of the legislative body as well as executive body. So if we just recognize that the world has changed, the reality about the situation around the globe is impacting and affecting Thailand, we should change. But now we do not have at all. So it norms for the politicians and also for the people who are in power for long in Thailand, that we not going to change our position at all. We're taking stance, especially for the countries has a powerful country, hegemonic status. Like, for example, I can say loudly and clearly, when the US come to our country, we have to follow them. When the Chinese come to the country, we follow them. When any country, EU 27 states of EU come to our country to talk about any issue, Thailand following them. I always criticize Thai government that, guys, you should change your own position. You should not stay here any longer. You cannot take the status quo any longer. We're not in the Cold War era any longer. We should move forward. So especially in terms of the situation in the Palestine and also the occupation of Israeli the troops over the Gaza, things like that. We should have our position. But again, sorry to say, this kind of thing never be heard in the parliament. We try our best. For me, as an opposition party, just only one person in one political party, my voice not that yet loud enough. But for sure, I think
well, with the positions that you ensconced there, we hope your party continues to grow and develop so you can apply more leverage on the Thai government and its systems to bring about a more proactive policies when it comes to these issues. Now, you mentioned bamboo diplomacy there, but isn't that one of Thailand's strengths, its ability to go with the wind and not be beaten or eaten up or attacked by the great powers? Yeah, so that's a strength, is it not?
For me, I don't look at the strength, because it's not only bamboo policy, but what I heard from our foreign minister, he mentioned that now Thailand we have what we call quiet diplomacy. Quiet diplomacy. And then I told him that's too quiet. So we should not be that quiet. We should be a little bit louder. We should talk. We should put on our table that Thailand we can change. We can take the leading role in this international community, even though we are the middle state here in the whole world. However, we can have our principle. We can adhere to the principle that been respected in the international community. For example, like humanitarian. So the four humanitarian principles we can abide by, and then we can move forward.
There's another problem for Thailand. You've got close ties with Israel, and that's gone on for decades on farming and military matters. So does the Thai state really want to jeopardize those ties just to arrest a few war criminals that Abu Jaja might put our way and give us information on? What is the mood in Parliament on this?
So again, I'm not speaking because I'm from a position. But so, as you can see, the facts speak by itself. So when we have this Israeli coming to Thailand, we never ever okay, I'm going back to, for example, recently, the facto authority, the leader of the facto authority from Myanmar, been invited by Thai government officially to attend BIMSTEC in Thailand. And 2 weeks later, he also been invited officially by the leader, by the chairman of ASEAN, to come to utilize Thailand as a place in which they're going to discuss between the ASEAN chairperson, which is Anwar Ibrahim, the Malaysian Prime Minister, and also the Min Aung Hlaing in Thailand. If the Thai government really recognize this importance of the humanitarian, of humanity, I don't think this thing will happen. So that's the big guys that been our neighbor for long. But when we talk about the Israeli, the soldier, the one who committed this kind of the crime against humanity, even though we have the records from Interpol, such and such, do you think Thailand going to take action? I think the guy that come from our neighbor come here, the one that everyone blame him so much about bombing, air bombardment, airstrike towards his own citizen. Thailand take very quiet diplomacy. That's why I said it's too quiet. We should not be quiet any longer for international community. We should stand tall and talk with our dignity.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Let me ask a question to Abu Jaja here before we open it up for members of the audience to ask their questions, please. And could you explain to us, please, Abu Jaja, and you recount on your website the case of Orel Ben-Yesh, an Israeli soldier. Can you explain how it is possible that an Israeli soldier charged for a crime he committed in Gaza and is being charged by a Romanian court? Israeli charged in a Romanian court for a crime he committed in Gaza. How does that work?
Right. Yeah, it's basically the core of what we're trying to do, and this is what we are actually what we call and what's called legally the activation of the universal jurisdiction principle. And as the gentleman has pointed out, indeed, Thailand is not a signatory of the statute and did not actually integrate at least the provisions into Thai law, meaning that the Thai prosecutor can always argue that Thailand has no jurisdiction over any crime that is not committed on its territory. So this is a big problem. I think this is the only way to, the root way to address it, or the fundamental way to address this, would be to change the law, would be to integrate, at least provisions, because you do not need the Rome Statute to integrate provisions of universal jurisdiction. You can also do it through the Geneva Convention, which Thailand is a signatory of. But you need the law in a Thai law that actually states what's in that convention before it can be applied on Thai territory. However, and here I will come to the nuance in this, which is, what we're trying to do, we're trying to re-articulate all this and tell everyone that you do not need provisions in the local law to apply your obligations to international treaties, which is what people might consider a maximalist approach to international law. I think you could argue in Thailand, like everywhere else, that a Thai judge can decide to move on a war criminal just by the fact of them being on their territory. Because under the Geneva Convention already, the signatories of the convention have the obligation to prevent war crimes and genocide, and also to act against that. So there is a way always to, let's say, justify moving against such an individual. So what can help, or what can push in that direction, is political pressure, grassroots pressure, and engaging the prosecutors by continuously filing cases. This is our strategy. We're trying to communicate constantly through legal cases and saying, well, we know you don't have this national law, but you can still do something with it based on your obligation to international treaties. So let me zoom into the case of Beni Aish in Romania, which is a very interesting case, because what happened there, of course, Romania is a signatory of the Rome Statute. Romania has a quite good level of integration of the provisions of the statute into its own laws. So on paper, Romania cannot claim not to have jurisdiction. However, this is the case also in Spain, this is the case in many countries, and these countries still try to get away of taking their responsibilities. So the normal thing that the normal, which is very, very regrettable, but still the normal behavior of prosecutors across the planet is to try to escape responsibility, is to try to tell you, look, we need the guy to be resident in Spain, for example, instead of on the territory. So they're trying not to move. So this is not very different from what happens in Thailand. What happened in Romania is interesting because the prosecutor did not reject the case, did not say Romania has no jurisdiction. The prosecutor accepted the case, but said, oh, it's not my case. Since this is a soldier, I'm going to pass it to the military prosecutor. So I don't know what will happen with the case. Our lawyers there are waiting to see what will happen. But for us, it's already a win because there is an acknowledgement of your jurisdiction. So this is a step forward, and we will build on that. This is what we're doing also in Brazil, what we're doing at the moment, more than 30 countries where we have cases running. So it's a long, it's a long fight. It's something that needs a lot of patience, and that needs, to be done systematically in order to bear some fruits. However, I cannot stress enough the importance of solidarity, national solidarities in these countries. I think this is vital. You need like global organizations like ourselves doing this everywhere, but you need also people being aware of this reality and pushing locally, pushing the political scene and the cultural scene, the social scene, in order to create the momentum necessary to make these countries move. And again, it's very important to note this is not just Thailand. Thailand could argue, look guys, I did not sign this treaty, or I don't have a provisions. You have countries who on paper have the obligation to act, to move, who are defaulting on that obligation. So imagine the level of impunity that the Israelis are enjoying. But the good news is that this is changing. This is shifting. What the case of Beni Aish that you just referred to is an indicator of that. The case of Yuval Baghdadi in Brazil is even a more expressed form of that shift that is happening. So we feel that this dam of impunity that has been built around Israeli war criminals is starting to crack. There are some cracks already. And I think it's our task, all of us, whether in our legal actions or mobilization or solidarity campaigns, to widen these cracks in order for accountability to replace impunity.
Thank you. So, just if I can sum up my understanding of this, universal jurisdiction already exists, the Geneva Convention already exists, and these two of themselves are enough to prosecute. But all it needs for a Thai judge to issue an arrest warrant for an Israeli soldier for a crime they committed in Gaza is there's not enough pressure from ordinary Thais for that to happen. So you keep talking, you mentioned Spain escapes from it and Romania escapes from it, all trying to escape and give excuses for not doing that, because basically the public pressure isn't there on the politicians and therefore through the courts as well to do that. But the legal framework is there already. Yeah, we can arrest Israeli soldiers for their war crimes here in Thailand for what they did in Gaza. We just need a bit more pressure from us as civil society to get our governments to apply pressure. Comments?
Yeah, just only one for the universal jurisdiction. I think that even though it's here, but it's applicable. However, for the implementation in Thailand, it's questionable. So many times we say that even though we do not, it's kind of international customary law that we should respect universal jurisdiction, even though we not yet sign any, ratify any international legal framework. However, in Thailand, when we push in terms of the respect, the promotion of the respect of this universal jurisdiction, so many times we have been, it's been quite hesitant from another pillar, because we have executive body, we have legislative body, and we have judge. So I cannot criticize the judge that much, because otherwise I will be kicked out. So I have to say that loudly. So, but we have asked for the universal, the respect on the universal jurisdiction here in Thailand. So many times, and everything is going back to the issue of not the Geneva Convention, Mr. Abuja, but going back to this Rome Statute. So it said that everyone said that because we not yet ratify for the Rome Statute, that is a big question mark for me, because for the universal jurisdiction, I don't think that we should ratify anything. That is just only my question, just with to Mr. Abuja or to you, Kapajan.
Okay, thank you.
I agree. Yeah, if I may say something, Ray, I totally agree. I mean, in customary international law, you do not need to ratify. It's an obligation based on convention treaty. However, the practice is that you need ratification to implement. So when a judge tells you, or a prosecutor tells you, look, we did not ratify, I mean, we ratified, for example, but we did not integrate in our local codes. We don't have a Thai law that allows us to do that. He's not lying to you, he's telling you the truth. However, what we're arguing for, because this was also the situation in Brazil, they signed the Rome Statute, but they did not actually implement it on the Brazilian law. So we're asking the judge to take a maximalist interpretation. We say, no, we still think that you still do have it, like the Mr. MP said. And it only takes one prosecutor/judge to think like you. And it happened in several countries already. For example, that was the case in Brazil with Yuval Baghdadi's case. The prosecutor first referred our case, accepted our case, and the judge issued a probe order, meaning ordered the police to intercept the suspect and hold him. And of course, some people would argue technically, this is like the judge stepped out of their line. But you already have that opening. So I mean, it's a new terrain, and the will to escape responsibility is universal, unfortunately. Every single country in the world is trying to tell us, look, it's not my problem. Take it to the ICC, take it to the ICJ. It's not our problem, right? So this is general. However, we see that things are moving slowly, that this acceptance of universal jurisdiction is also, pushing more than it did, let's say, a year ago or 2 years ago. So there is hope, and I think there's a window of opportunity now to increase that pressure and maybe, find allies to push also for the incorporation of these principles in these conventions, whether ratify the Rome Statute or implement some local codes that can give universal jurisdiction. I think there is a window of opportunity. I don't know how long it will last, but I believe this is a very open moment for that kind of debate.
Thank you. Questions, please, from the audience. We are interactive. You are allowed to ask questions, so please feel free. While I wait for a questioner, one of the things I'm curious about, Abu Jaja, is we talked about the overall structure of getting arrest warrants. I'm curious about the evidence. How do you get the evidence to prove that this particular individual or that particular individual committed the crime? Otherwise, it's not going to. The judge isn't going to sign, and it probably isn't going to stand up in court. Could you talk briefly about the evidence that you were able to collect?
Yes. Well, we have teams of researchers who do what is called open source intelligence research. It's a big word to say basically that they look at the social media posts of the Israeli soldiers and also any other publicly available information and document it. Now, one of the marking aspects of this genocide in Gaza is that the perpetrators have been documenting almost everything that they are doing and posting it themselves on social media. Some people refer to this as the TikTok genocide. It is basically, it's a phenomenon that is not really very known before. But on the legal side of things, it allows us to gather a lot of evidence and a lot of information that come in the form of confession. Because if you kill someone or blow up a home and then film yourself and then post it on your own social media, well, basically, imagine you do it individually. Imagine you have a fight with your neighbor and then you stab them with a knife and you film this and you put it on social media. That amounts to confession. So, of course, there are some technical things to be taken into consideration. For example, being able technically to prove that this post came from that particular account and that it belongs to that particular person, but that there are ways to do that. But, having respected this procedural aspect, you basically have, a fully documented set of war crimes. So all these individuals that we file cases against have one thing in common. They all documented the crimes they committed themselves. They filmed the acts, they posted on their social media, and we obviously have our evidence there. Important also to note that this is what we need to do is to open an investigation. What we're asking the authorities is to open an investigation, right? Of course, we can ask in a complaint to have an arrest warrant. We say that we believe that these crimes and these crimes and these crimes have been committed. But at the end of the day, it is not our responsibility to prove guilt. It is the responsibility of the prosecution. It's the state, the law enforcement, that needs to open an investigation and maybe use tools that we do not have that are not available to us. But already, which is a unique thing that maybe in history, already what we are in possession of based on what the soldiers themselves posted is a very incriminating set of evidence.
Thank you. We're here talking about Hind, well, your foundation is named after Hind Rajab, and you were talking earlier about the 2 paramedics who were killed as well after they had got agreement from the Israelis to come and rescue her. Now, I gather that forensic architecture, which is a UK-based research group at London University, was involved in this, and they concluded that it was a tank that killed the paramedics who'd come to save her. Could you talk a little bit more about forensic architecture and the sort of work that they do for you and others? Yes,
actually we are working very closely with forensic architecture and many other research bodies because what we do is we extract the information. Our strength is the access we have to the accounts of these Israeli soldiers and the ability of connecting the dots in terms of the responsibilities. Forensic architecture is very strong in terms of geolocation of events and in terms of analyzing professional satellite data and being able of establishing physical presence of certain units or certain parts, brigades, battalions, etc. So I think, but there are also other organizations that specialize in different things, and we are establishing a very good collaboration among all these organizations, and together with forensic architecture or based on their research, but also sometimes some media bodies. Sometimes you'll be surprised that some mainstream media organization did some great research. For example, in the case of Hind, Sky News of all media outlets did a great research on the crime and actually could identify partly the involved brigade. So then comes, for example, our work after forensic architecture, Sky News, and then we look at the soldiers because we have what the soldiers posted, right? And then we look for footages that show people on the scene. And then we analyze, okay, this soldier, what battalion is he from? What unit is he from? And then we put the pieces together and the puzzle becomes very visible. So we could not only determine the brigade that is responsible and the leader of that brigade, we determined also the battalion and the platoon down to the tank squad. And we filed the case at the ICC against the commander, but we are taking the individuals who are on low rank and file, low ranking, to national jurisdiction. How do we do that? Through dual nationality. Because a lot of these soldiers have another nationality next to the Israeli ones. Some of them do not even have the Israeli ones. They only have another nationality.
Thank you.
So
how many
this
Israeli
allows us
soldiers?
to activate jurisdiction.
How many Israeli soldiers do you have on your database as war criminals? Are we talking a couple? Are we talking 200 or what? Is that information you can share?
Yeah, we are very near to 20,000.
What?
We are very
How
near to
many?
20,000. Yes.
20,000.
20,000. Yes.
20,000.
Yes. 20,000 who committed crimes and posted it. And crimes, of course, vary. It's a spectrum of things. It can start with looting, and it ends in extrajudicial killing. So it's a whole range of crimes, but we're talking about 20,000 soldiers. Yes,
wow,
that we know of, that we have documented.
It's sure that some of those are going to come on to Thailand on holiday. That's for sure. On that young man coming over here. I thank you for that. That's a huge number there. No, I'm glad that you've got that there. Let me shift the focus back to Thailand again, to Kun Kanavi. And we know that we've got 30,000 Thai workers working in the kibbutzes, agricultural workers. 41 were killed on the day. Another 31 taken hostage. There's still one Thai hostage left in Gaza. How has this affected the public mood in Thailand?
For the public mood in Thailand, when we talk about hostage outside of our territory, so mostly the Thai public concern is about the violence, about how are we going to deal with the situation. But for me, for my constituency, mostly I'll be in the southern part of Thailand, so populated mostly brotherhoods, Muslim brotherhood, sisterhood. So the issue of the idea that we have this kind of the Islamophobia, thing like that is coming up to our public very obviously. So that kind of idea that make the Thai policy, Thai foreign policy very stuck in terms of the long time ago. We do not want to touch upon the situation. For me, I'm very outspoken. I'm very open about this kind of issue of the xenophobia, Thailand. So we afraid of some certain, if you do not agree, please let me know. But for me, when I look at in terms of the policy, the Thai law and all kind of the things that we're having now. So we kind of tend to look at Thai people at the center. So when we talk about outsider, we talk about foreigner, we tend to afraid of those kind of things. That's why we have the status quo in terms of our foreign policy. It's very difficult. We try to, then that's why you can see that the relationships between Thailand and Israeli government is quite tight. So it's very challenging and difficult for the government to think that we have to shift the paradigm of our international relations. So, and I wish one day that our legislative body could push in terms of this kind of the idea of humanitarian, humanity, in our parliament. So the crimes committed outside of our territory is one of the issues that we need to focus upon. So we never thought about it. That's why we have this like this, the many thousands of the Israeli, maybe the one that committed the crimes outside of Thailand, coming to Thailand, and the Thai government never thought about it. So I just try to connect these two issues all together, about the hostage, about the public moods from Thailand, and also about the international community with the Thai foreign relations. So that's the issue.
I know you got some serious competition from the Israeli ambassador here in Thailand, who is very vociferous, very outgoing, and like probably all Israeli ambassadors, is very proactive in putting across the Israeli message. So that's one thing the Palestinians don't have. They don't have that sort of spokesperson who can call upon the Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs and speak to foreign ministers.
True. And also the Thai government, we just enjoy what we call the government to government track 1 relationships. That's it. We never thought about track 2 or track 2.5 that we can communicate with non-government entity. So that's why you can see the Thai government, they also talk with other government to government. We never talk about this how can I say, the non-government that recognized internationally. So that's a weak point of the Thai foreign policy, and also how.
So that's not on Thai foreign policy. They're only interested in state-to-state relationships.
Exactly.
Yeah, not with civil society organizations. I don't think Thailand is alone on that issue. I do know that the Thai Foreign Ministry, we did do an indirect approach, and they weren't interested in talking about what's going on in Gaza right now. And part of that is to do with the agricultural workers and the hostages there. Are there any questions? Oh, yes, there is. Imtiaz, please.
Thank you, Nick. Khun Kanawee, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Very, very nice of you to spend so much time and share your views. On one other aspect of the foreign policy is the issue of visas. Israelis come in here without a visa. Is that something, if you see many of them are like war criminals, alleged war criminals, and they've got 20,000 of them, should they not be considered a national security threat? And is there a way by which you could talk to the foreign ministry about looking at it from a national security perspective? Because many of them have been involved in many of the Israeli visitors to Thailand are being involved in many incidents where there's confrontations with local people in restaurants, bars, etc., etc. And on top of that, there have been, as you saw, the recent incidents in Pai over there. At the same time, Thais need visas to go to Israel. And as you know, when you apply for a visa to go to Israel, it's a long convoluted, we get treated as national security threats to Israel, but their people can come to here with no visas. So could that be one step that can be raised? Because at a foreign policy level, the reciprocity process has to be applied. So if one country applies a visa for one country, the other one also has to apply. But for tourist reasons, the Israelis are allowed to come here free of no visas, no questions asked. But we Thai people have to go through this long procedure and interrogation. So maybe if you could kindly address that, because it's a legal, very clear process, and certainly we can ask some legitimate questions on that area, because it can be proved that they are potential national security threats. And one question to Professor Abjah. Sir, this question I raised to the earlier speaker as well. But from a legal perspective, again, could you help us understand the position of the Arab governments on this? They don't join any of the legal proceedings, and there's a lot of lip service, of course, paid at the international forums, but really nothing happens when it comes down to the ground. So I was just wondering if you could help us understand that.
So, Khun Kanawee first on the visas.
So for the issue, thank you for the question and also the concern. So for sure, the free visa policy that issued by this Thai government has been criticized, and also we raised the issue, that we raised the concern already, especially during the time that we have the victim of the human trafficking and human smuggling issue in Myanmar. So because of the Thailand had been transitional country for these smugglers and also the human traffickers. So that's why we raised the issue, we raised the concern that, guys, now we have a free visa policy for more than 140 countries that just, if they can hold the valid national passport, they can come to Thailand anytime for 60 days and for the extension for 30 more days, for nine months. So that's why it became the issue. Now, I think that the Thai government has issued another additional protocol, procedures in following up, just only following up situation, following up for the people who come to who enter into Thailand, but not for the restriction. So thank you. I will take that one. I take the note, and also when I have a chance, when our parliament reopening our session, that one will be one of the first. Thank you.
So, Imtiaz, if I can understand this, when Thais go to Israel, they have to get a visa. Yes. So there's no reciprocity. I would have thought that would be a major issue of sovereignty to bring up with the Israeli government. Sorry, the Thai government.
We call quiet diplomacy.
Quiet. Yes. And the question to Abu Jaja was about the same one as so the lack of involvement, proactiveness of countries in the Middle East.
Yes. Thank you for that question. It's a very valid one. And however, I think my answer will only confirm, I think, what you already understand about the Arab regimes in general. These countries, to start with, mostly have a problem with anything legal. So since most of these countries are not, let's put it like that, democracies in any shape or form, so their relationship with constitutional structures and laws is anyway problematic. They do not really adhere. Most of these countries, I don't think there is an Arab country who signed their own statute. I have to double check that, but I don't believe any did, let alone activate any form of universal jurisdiction within their own legal code. So on the legal level, these countries, in terms of, let's say, going after their own nationals, because many Tunisians are participating in the genocide. Many Moroccans are participating in the genocide. So these are two nationalities that you see. Also some Iraqis, some Yemenis. The Yemenis have been having different ways to show solidarity, so we cannot criticize those. But I mean, there are countries who can move on their, let's say, at least nationals. But this is also true across several other Muslim countries. Almost 4,000 Turks have been serving in Gaza. Some of them committed war crimes. So it is the Israeli army in Gaza. It looks like an international brigade. The diaspora has constituted a big part of that army. It's still constituting that. So it's very important to address that. The other level where these countries could have done something is, for example, join with South Africa and other countries that are now forming what's called the Hague Group to go to the ICJ. Because unlike the ICC, the ICJ is only accessible for states. And this is why South Africa initiated that case for genocide against Israel, which is a very seriously built legal case. And it's very likely to get to some kind of result eventually, and if it does eventually condemn, if Israel is condemned for genocide through this, the ICJ, people say it might take 3 to 4 years before we know that. This will have huge implications, because it will mean anybody who participated in that endeavor is incriminated, even if they did not themselves commit what we call war crimes, meaning certain legal acts. So just to go back to the question, no Arab country so far participated or helped South Africa. So we personally do not expect a lot from Arab countries. And I think many of these countries are rather complicit with what Israel is doing. This is the dramatic side of things. The Arab population is in one world. It's very sympathetic, very in solidarity with Palestine. However, the government, either they are trying to avoid this thing or are even aiding and abetting Israel in this thing. So this is the sad but maybe realistic answer to this.
Thank you. I just want to pick you up on a point that you said there, because I find that surprising. You say that there's a multinational force engaged in Gaza. It's not just the Israelis. Am I right? Did you say 4,000 Turks? Did I? Or
Correct.
Was it, what on earth were they doing in Gaza?
Well, they are soldiers of the Israeli army.
Of the Israeli army?
Yes, yes.
Right,
these are not like to make a thing. This is part of the let's say diaspora, Israeli diaspora across the planet. So these people are Turks and identify as Jewish, and they are part of the Israeli military structure, right? They are reservists. You have 24,000 Americans, 24,000 U.S. citizens. The numbers are staggering. You have like around 6,000 French. So if you look at this, this is why we're saying this is a global responsibility, because all these countries, have their citizens doing this in Gaza. I mean, the estimation is that 1/3 at least, this is a conservative estimate, that 1/3 of the soldiers who were active in Gaza have another nationality, 1/3. But like I said, these are conservative estimates. We believe that the number is much larger than this.
Thank you. We do have a question. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. I have a few questions, actually. Maybe a follow-up for you, Mr. Abu Jaja. With the soldiers of other nationalities, is HRF also trying to prosecute them or taking action regarding that? And then another question is with the database where you mentioned around 20,000 soldiers that HRF has evidence on. Could you potentially share with us what the top locations are, and if Thailand or Southeast Asian locations are up on the list? And then I have another question as well, if we have time for Khun Kanawi, and that is within Parliament, have you seen other parties who have shown an interest in the Palestinian cause, or are maybe more critical of the Thai relationship with Israel? Thank you.
So, Abu Jaja, you first, please, sir.
Right. Thank you for the question. Let me start with the discussion on the dual nationals, what we call the dual nationals. However, this term is not very exact because some of them do not even have the Israeli nationality. So the Israeli army is open for soldiers who do not have its own nationality, but want to volunteer. So there are even structures of recruiting in many countries that facilitate the process of what they call lone soldiers to go from any country in the West, mostly, to Israel and to enlist. But I mean, let's take these soldiers, and for the HRF, these are the major track of our work. Why? Because through that second nationality, we can activate not universal jurisdiction, but simply jurisdiction of their home countries. So imagine one of them is a Thai citizen. Imagine, right? So we do not have to tell Thailand, look, because of universal jurisdiction, you have to go after him. Then we can make a case that, well, you are responsible for the deeds of your citizens, and you have, you have a responsibility, you have jurisdiction on them. So for most countries in the world, this is given. Okay, some countries would contest, would tell you about the location of the crime still, even if they are, if the crime is committed by a citizen. However, the majority of countries in the world would never contest having jurisdiction for the deeds of their citizens. So our strategy when it comes to these dual nationals is to take them to their home countries, and we work slowly on their dossiers. We take our time because we are not under pressure of time. Our actions are not depending on them visiting a country in order to activate universal jurisdiction. For us, we have the time to work on these dossiers. This is what we call marathon strategy. We're working on it across the planet, and we are taking our time with it. But eventually, these are the cases where we believe convictions will absolutely come, because these are the cases where the countries cannot escape their responsibility, right? So the other kind of cases, these are the cases that people know us from. These are the traveling soldiers, the tourist soldiers. So while the first strategy is a marathon, the second, this one regarding the tourist soldier, is like a 100-meter sprint. You have to act very fast because the soldier is coming for vacation for a week or 2 or 3. And so within that window, you have to try to convince the prosecution that the jurisdiction is open and try to build a case, etc. So our main focus is on the dual nationals, but this is silent work. We don't talk much about it. But the other one is also, of course, important because accountability cannot be divided. When it comes to the database of the soldiers, I think the question is regarding their nationality or the location of their traveling. I will answer in terms of nationality. The first nationality is American nationality. The second is French nationality, and so on. I think the proportion respects the general proportion of dual nationals within the ranks of the Israeli army. So I think this is one aspect. The other, but you have people from all kinds of countries. Like I said, you have Tunisians, you have Moroccans, you have Turks. We have people from Uzbekistan. You have people from places where you did not know that you could have. We have Chinese citizens. We have Chinese citizens who are serving in Gaza and committing war crimes. So it's incredible. It's like I never seen anything like it in any conflict before. Maybe the only comparison possible is ISIS in Iraq, in Israel, and Syria, because they had also that multinational aspect of their terrorist militia. So on the other level, in terms of travel destination, I can tell you that Thailand, together with Brazil, are maybe the most popular travel destinations. Every day, every single day, we have, because we have a team that monitors their movement based on their social media posts. So every day we have people visiting Thailand, every single day, who are war criminals. Every single day, people with blood on their hands, people who destroyed homes, people who kidnapped, who tortured civilians, every single day. It is very, indeed, someone I think mentioned looking at this from a security perspective. This is absolutely true. I mean, I wouldn't feel safe if I'm sitting on a table in a restaurant next to me, someone from the IDF, not because I'm personally, I mean, I wouldn't be safe because I don't know what kind of person is that, what kind of post-traumatic syndrome are they suffering from, what kind of mindset they have. So there is a problem there also, I think, security problem for many countries, and it's showing what's happening in Thailand is happening in Sri Lanka, it's happening in Brazil. They're being very aggressive, they're attacking local people. There is something, I think, this generation, because these are very young people, you have to realize, we're talking about very young men, and they are, of course, committing crimes, and they are criminals, but at the same time, they are also somehow victims of a geopolitical and ideological machine run by people like Netanyahu and the elites of their countries, and they are actually being psychologically destroyed. The level of insensitivity that they are showing and the crimes they are committing is astonishing. So I believe they are a threat for any society they are visiting, but they are even a threat for the Israeli society itself. I think the repercussion of this genocide will not be limited even to foreign countries. I think this is like a ticking bomb under the Israeli society itself.
Along the same line, by answering the question with Professor Abu Jaja about the interest in the parliament, the Thai parliament, towards the issue of in Palestine, I think that for us, for coalition from the opposition, we have a strong interest in terms of this kind of the issue, and we participated at several occasions in terms of the supporting and promoting the respect for the issue of humanitarian. But when we look at in terms of the interest from the government, the coalition from the government, so they do have interest. However, I have not seen yet the significant, the interest that can make a significant change in terms of the public policy or the foreign policy with the issue of the coming of the foreigner coming to Thailand. So that's why I do not see any upcoming very soon for any restriction for the Israeli, the war criminal who come to Thailand. I do not see. But again, I will push forward. I will push forward the issue of this, how the restriction.
Well, it's interesting what Abu Jaja said about, someone mentioned earlier, PI and the issues we've had with Israeli tourists. I don't know, I'm only speculating here, whether these were soldiers, Israeli soldiers, who've become brutalized. So where they go overseas, they are likely to be take those sort of attitudes and feelings that they've got. And as Abu Jaja says, this is a ticking time bomb also for Israel when these people return back even to their own home societies, that this is affecting individuals there. And Abu Jaja, you mentioned the Jew nationality as being a marathon, slowly but surely building up the case against them, whereas the Israelis themselves coming as tourists, you have to act like it's a 100-meter sprint to get the case in front of a judge quickly and rapidly as they come in. We have another question.
Hello, my name is Nick Dunlop. I'm a freelance. I wanted to broaden it out a little bit, the discussion. I'm curious to know, there have been somewhere in the region of 12 genocides since 1945, depending on your definition of the legal term. If and when Israel is indicted by the ICJ, what does that in fact mean?
What do you mean? What does it mean?
Well, I mean, you know, as I state, there's been several genocides since 1945. I think the ICJ is only determined two, apart from the Israeli indictment, which we're expecting. If indeed Israel is, you know, found guilty of genocide, what will that translate as? I mean, what does it mean? Because we've had plenty of genocides and nothing has, you know, really materialized.
You mean, what are the repercussions if Israel is found guilty? Is that what you mean?
Exactly, yeah. What are they? Because there are plenty of states that have got away with genocide time and time again.
So what was the first state that was prosecuted for genocide?
The first state prosecuted for genocide?
What was it? I can't remember.
I think it's Srebrenica. I think it's the massacre of Srebrenica, former Yugoslavia.
Yeah. So, what are the repercussions then?
Yeah, well, you know, it's a very interesting question. However, I think, you know, so far, all these cases related to genocide have been deferred to specialized courts. And not to the ICJ mostly. I mean, as you know, for example, in the case of Yugoslavia, which is the clearest case in this case, you know, that we can refer to, there was a special court created for Yugoslavia. Okay, not even, of course, not the ICC, that can go only after individuals, and not the ICJ. So, well, what happened? The ICJ actually gives you a legal assessment of something, but it would not, you will never see people standing in front of the ICJ to be judged. This is the work of the ICC. So there are two scenarios. Already Netanyahu and Gallant are indicted by the ICC. So already they are wanted fugitives. Of course, it is very tough to arrest them for known reasons, because they enjoy at this moment the political protection of, let's say, a country like the United States, especially. But nevertheless, you know, they are taking a lot of measures to avoid arrest still, because they can, for example, that's why Netanyahu might visit Hungary, but he will not be very, I think, inclined to visit even the UK at the moment, even though we know that the UK is not really, you know, jumping, you know, going out of the way to arrest him, right? But if he ever visits the UK or Belgium or France, it will be very difficult for the local authority to shield him from possible action from prosecutions who must obey the arrest warrant of the ICC. So, and we don't even have already, let's say, an opinion from the ICJ accusing Israel of genocide. We have the ICJ saying there's plausibility of genocide. Now, we are convinced that it's genocide, but we understand the mechanism, of course, of the ICJ. Eventually, if the ICJ determines this as a genocide, what will happen is that, you know, someone has to pay the price. So it will invigorate the ICC in terms of going after the perpetrator. By then, probably Gallant and Netanyahu. Gallant is already no more in office, so he doesn't enjoy any immunity. and Netanyahu will probably not be in office by then, so he will not be able of claiming immunity, even though immunity cannot be given to him because there is already an arrest warrant, but there's discussion on that. So that's one thing that can happen. But the most important thing from our perspective is that now, whilst now we need to prove individual responsibility of every soldier before we file a case against them, because we cannot claim them as perpetrator of, or as co-perpetrator of a genocide, because we are still awaiting that judgment, right? So we have to prove war crimes. And by then, if Israel is incriminated, it will make anyone who participated in that endeavor, which is the genocide then in Gaza, you know, it will allow us to go after them with minimal, with just being able of proving their presence on the territory of Gaza, which is a very, especially when it comes for the officers, definitely, but even for individual soldiers, if we can actually create some reasonable doubt in terms of their involvement also. So it will not be without repercussions. I believe, I don't want to delve into political and geopolitical repercussions. That will also be there. I will not discuss cultural repercussions. That will be there as well. But
will there
legally
be
speaking,
will there be reparations of some sort from the Israelis to the Palestinians? Maybe that's what the direction you're pushing in, that the reparations in some way, financial reparations that Israel will have to pay each year for a number of years to help reconstruct?
That is somewhat more complicated because the law, international law, also is at the end of the day geared toward individual responsibility. So even if the act is collective, you know, it's very complicated. The question of reparations are always more complicated than the question of indicting individuals. But it can be put on the table, but it needs different mechanisms. And I'm not a specialist in that department, so I cannot really tell you more than that. What I know is that it's more complicated. But in terms of personal responsibility, the implications will be enormous. And eventually, we are convinced that we are going there. We are convinced that it is coming to that. But we need to keep the evidence. And the good news, or I mean, there are hardly good news when people are being slaughtered en masse, but I mean, there is no state of limitation. I mean, even if in 10 years it becomes acceptable that this was a genocide, if the evidence is being preserved, there's no state of limitation. You can go after people after 10 years. There is a case here in Belgium, in Brussels, related to Honduras, for crimes against humanity, which is similar category to genocide. It was revived after 40 years, and there was a judgment given. So, yeah, they will not get away easy with this. It's impossible.
Thank you. Has that answered in some way your question? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Do you have a final? We're about to draw our panel discussion, a good 75 minutes worth of massive amounts of information on the Thai political situation and the difficulties of arresting Israeli war criminals over here, and a lot of legal advice and insight there from Abu Jaja on how we can go about it. So can I give a big warm round of applause for both of our speakers this evening? Abu Jaja and Kun Kenavi, thank you very much. I hope we can both see you again at another time. Thank you very much indeed. Good night.
Thank you.
Kun Kenavi. Kun Kenavi. Yeah. Please stay on the stage for a bit longer. So Ajahn Adisra, this is your cue. All right, that is the end of the panel discussion on the accountability and Israeli war criminals in Thailand with the Hin Rajab Foundation and Kun Kannavi Silsang from the FAIR party. Thank you so much to Assistant Professor Nicholas as well for doing the heavy lifting today, managing a couple of panels today. Thank you so much. For the next part of our event, we are going into a session called Spotlight Presentation, efforts to drive ethical tourism, from a speaker from the BDS National Committee. So I believe, okay, she's here with us now. So, okay, so I would, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
All right, we can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome.
Please proceed with the presentation. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for organizing this. It gives me immense pleasure to be speaking to a Thai audience and seeing as well the work being done by BSc over the years, but particularly in the last few months that I've been learning about. I'm going to speak about something which actually draws from the previous panel discussion that we heard, because we've talked about the question of accountability that is raised in this situation, and I do want to just quickly passingly mention that it's definitely something to delve into regarding what would be the consequences of this charge of genocide being, Israel being convicted of it. But I think what we often forget is that for today marks 77 years in Palestinian history, where there has been, in these 77 years, no accountability for settler colonialism, apartheid, now genocide and occupation. So I think if we remember this from a Palestinian perspective, just for Israel to be held accountable for its crimes is in itself so very important. And we understand that this is not something that is easy, and we understand that this is not something that's going to happen overnight. And there I draw from the previous speakers who spoke about the question of a marathon versus a sprint, and where we feature in our work as the BDS movement, where we feature in our work as BDS movement is precisely at the level of that marathon. What I mean by that is the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, which is led by the absolute majority of Palestinian civil society. The calls on activists and groups and peoples of conscience around the world to take non-violent pressure and campaign actions to hold corporations and states accountable and to end that complicity with Israel. In this case, and I want to quickly move to the topic that I think we've spoken, or it's been introduced really well to this gathering, which is the question of tourism and the question of alleged war criminals arriving in Thailand for vacations and so on, and how to sort of tackle that. And so the ICC cases, the arrest warrants, the ICJ ongoing investigation, universal jurisdictions, these are all ways that we understand that we are moving towards ending that impunity for Israel and for Israeli alleged and convicted war criminals. But we have to understand that these are pressure tactics that don't exist automatically. These are activated because of grassroots pressure. We know this really well, that it's a very common saying that international law protects the one that offends, and sort of, and those who it's meant to protect have to constantly work hard to make it work in their favor, at least. So this is definitely one of those cases where we have to keep pushing at multiple levels for accountability and also for multiple forms of sanctions to come through, which is what genocide, apartheid, and those kind of atrocity crimes demand from third states. So speaking in a very broad sense, the first thing that needs to happen is that immigration laws have to change. Immigration laws have to be able to ask at the border, at the entry point, questions regarding suspected complicity in war crimes, genocide, and apartheid. This already exists. in several countries of global north. In fact, if you in Australia a few months ago, two former serving Israeli soldiers were denied entry, not because Australia didn't want them to have to get entry, but because they simply have visa laws that require people to declare if they have participated in conflict and war and so on. We don't have that in many parts of the third world, quote unquote. I'm in India, we're talking to Thailand, and in all of this part of the world, because we understand that this is part of the wider visa, immigration, racial structure of the world. So our countries have far loose restrictions, have allow for far more things to go on that would perhaps not be permitted in other parts of the world. But we want that to change, and for that to change, there has to be the pressure tactics at this broad policy level. But in the meantime, and in the interim that we reach that level, we have to be able to work collectively to broaden this understanding, and for also for groups and our communities and business owners to be able to take action in this direction. And I want to just cite a few examples that have happened in the last year or so to see why, to share why this is important. I was in Nepal a few months ago, and I was talking to a group of people who are tour business owners, they take people for treks and so on. And one person, fairly sort of like not, someone who's very political, but he shared this experience of in their trek group having one person who was coming from active duty in Gaza. And he decided one night during this trek to get people to see his perspective and sort of talk about what he feels and his pain and so on. And it made this business owner really uncomfortable because, okay, sure, he wants to not be a political person, but at the same time, he does not want his company to be a platform for someone committing genocide and war crimes to justify them to other people. And these kind of cases have been coming from many places. I'm sure many people have seen this video from a restaurant in Italy where this woman who's part of a campaign, a BDS campaign called Apartheid Free Zone. Her restaurant is an apartheid free zone, for which she's getting heckled and she stands her ground. Another example that has recently happened is from Japan. I don't know if many people know about it, but a small hostel in Kyoto, their management started a verification form for Israeli passport holders where they have to declare if they've participated in the war. Now, these are all things that should be actually happening at the immigration level. But since that doesn't happen, and business owners don't have a way of doing any such verification, so the fact that they ask these questions or put in a form is only legitimate because there is, in my understanding, there is 3 levels of why they want that. One is that these business owners, along with the communities and also a lot of solidarity groups, want to be able to implement what international law has already sort of set out in terms of the arrest warrants in the ICJ case in practice. So even if our governments don't want to, take too many steps in that direction, people want that to be happening at their levels in their communities. They want to be on the side of international law and also on the side of Palestinian people. So there's definitely that conviction that people have. And the third thing is that I don't think this question of safety is something very vague. It's a very real question. If somebody commits a crime, are you comfortable having them around you in your property, engaging with your guests? We just had this discussion, and it's not only about the future possibility of PTSD and so on that people talk about, but also the very present reality of someone who has been engaged in ongoing under investigation genocide. How comfortable is that to have on your business premises? So all of these questions together from a business point of view, but also from an ethical point of view, have been making a lot of solidarity groups all over the world, as well as legal experts, and definitely a lot of business owners to come together to find ways to have their own mechanisms of deterrence because they cannot investigate and they cannot, do what immigration is supposed to do. And as a movement, we definitely are against any kind of going after people's nationality or their religion and so on. So the question actually is very much only about alleged Israeli war criminals who've participated in the genocide. So this is so we have to go for the question of complicity and not of any identity. And all these factors together allow us to have certain deterrence measures that we can put in place. And one of those is for us to be part of initiatives that we are working on, to which properties and tourism businesses sign on, where they declare their support for a set of values which include support for Palestine, but also all forms of anti-racism, anti-sexism, also to be prioritizing the local community over a very exploitative form of tourism that many parts of the world, especially our world in South and Southeast Asia, have to endure. So all of these set of principles together is an initiative we are moving towards, and we would be inviting businesses to join that. And there is a lot of interest. I can tell you that much. And we imagine that these kind of expressions of solidarity would be the deterrence, because no alleged war criminals wants to be at a place where their war crimes are being called out. And this is obviously not foolproof, but the foolproof aspect has to be at the immigration level, at the policy level. And in the meantime, this is the kind of positive community organizing that we are working towards, and there is interest from at least 3 continents at this point towards it, to build these measures which can be apartheid-free zones, a cafe or a restaurant that commits to being an apartheid-free zone. This is a campaign of the BDS movement. You can check it out. Or signing up to other initiatives which express their solidarity, and in that way act also as a pushback for avoiding bullying and racism in the form of Zionist attacks or any other racist attacks. At the same time, making it very clear that we are looking at complicity and not identity. And I mean, there are more kind of ways that we are organizing this campaign, and I'm very happy to report that we have activists in Thailand also who are interested in this. And I would invite more support for this campaign, seeing as we've been discussing how critical this question is. And one very effective way of building pressure towards policy change, in fact, the only good way of working towards policy change, is through grassroots pressure. I think we all know that. And we hope for this campaign to create a proactive community of solidarity, and at the same time pressure policymakers into changing laws and having at least the same level of immigration checks as most other countries have, quote unquote, in the global north, and for various reasons that I think people understand are much more lax for us. So I want to just stop here, because the idea was to just share around this campaign. There's obviously a lot more that the BDS movement works on, but I think this is my time today, and just in case there are any comments or questions, I would just pause for now.
All right. Can we have a big round of applause for Ms. Apurva Gautam from Asia, from the BDS National Committee, Asia Pacific Coordinator. So I'm afraid we don't have time for Q&A right now, but still, thank you so much for calling in, for being here, even virtually, and thank you for giving us all this information about the BDS campaign, the BDS movement around the world, and how we can support that. So for our closing remarks for tonight, I would like to invite Dr. Disara Khatib to say a few things to everyone here before we close this event and go on our way for tonight. ครับ อาจารย์
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank all of our guests, Dr. Muslim Imran, Kun Kanawi Sibsang, Professor Abu Chacha, and Ms. Apurva Gautam. I also would like to thank our senior advisor, Professor Somchai, Professor Nick Ferryman, Kun Ian Hollingworth, and Kun Karis for making this event possible. I also would like to say this. Thailand is a beautiful country with nice and friendly people living harmoniously in a pluralistic society. However, Thailand is not a place to harbor or give sanctuary to war criminals. You cannot just commit horrendous crimes in Palestine and then come to Thailand taking a vacation here in our country. No, it's not going to work that way. These war criminals must be held accountable for their atrocious crimes against humanity. So for those who seek justice for the Palestinian people, don't let them get away with it. And don't even let them think that they can get away with it. And by the grace of God, Palestine shall be free. Free Palestine. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here tonight at the FCCT in Bangkok. I'd like to advertise, promote a few more events in case you don't have any plans just yet. On this 17th of May, this coming Saturday, there is going to be a protest downtown Bangkok organized by the Thai for Palestine and Seri Palestine Group. So if you do have time, from around 10 a.m. Until 12 at noon, you can join the protest near the Pathumwan intersection. So next to Payathai Road, across the street from Mabun Krong or MBK shopping mall. So that's a protest on the 17th. But if you do have friends in Chiang Mai, please do advertise another event to them as well. Chiang Mai for Palestine will have a screening on the 17th of May as well. แล้วคุณอาลียังอยู่ปะคุณอาลียังอยู่ Okay. Right. Thank you everyone again for being here tonight. Free Palestine.